Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Histories Uncharted. I am here as your host today, Shanna, and with me, as always, is my amazing co-host, Cecilia.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you so much for tuning in today, as this is our special Thanksgiving episode where we're going to talk about yummy, delicious things to eat.
I mean, you say yummy and delicious things to eat.
But as always, it's going to be from the perspective of Histories Uncharted.
Yeah. I knew we weren't going to get out easy.
Hey, Cecilia.
Oh my gosh, what?
So I have a joke for you.
Okay.
What do you call when one banana is eating another banana?
What?
Cannibalism. Weeks I've been holding on to that.
That's too much.
And I said it right the first time.
Cannibalism?
Cannibalism.
Banalism. Oh my god, Jack is gonna die when he hears that. I'm excited.
Aren't you proud of me for not telling you for weeks? I've been keeping that in. Cannibalism.
Perfect for this episode.
It was. So what we are going to be speaking about today is cannibalism through the ages.
Whoop whoop.
As I was doing my research and gathering all of my beautiful examples, there were a lot of examples of cannibalism that happens due to necessity, through famines or sieges, and those are super common, and I could just do a whole sad episode about that, but we're not going to, because it's just people as last resorts doing what they have to do.
Right. People put into extreme situations.
Yeah.
Having to do extreme things is not what this is.
Right. We're, for lack of a better word, we're going to look at the lighter side of cannibalism. And we're going to have fun with it today, as best as we can, as we only know how to do. So I hope everyone is ready for our super fun takes on cannibalism through the ages. You ready?
I am super ready.
All right, let's do this. So we're going to start out with some mythology, as always, because that's fun.
That is
where we start as most humans.
That is where we start as most humans. You are correct.
Yeah. So the first one is Tereus. He was a Thracian king. Tereus, who knows? I like Tereus. Well, one day, Tereus decided he kind of wanted his wife's sister, Philomena. So he went all the way down to Athens to ask his father-in-law for his wife's sister, stating that his wife already had died. So your daughter had died. Can I marry the other daughter? Is what he asked.
All right. Keep it in the family.
Yeah, so Dad obviously says yes and sends Philomena with a whole bunch of guards along with her back down to, Thrace to go be the queen down there. Along the way, Tereus attacks the guards, slews them, throws them into the sea, forces himself upon poor Philomena, and then cuts out her tongue so that she cannot tell a single person.
What?
Yeah, how we do.
Sorry, Philomena.
So he then goes and gives poor Philomena to his friend's wife as a slave. Okay.
What the cheese?
Friend's wife recognizes Philomena because just because she doesn't have a tongue doesn't mean
she's not Philomena.
Right.
All right.
Right. So Philomena weaves her story into a tapestry.
Nice.
Which the wife and Philomena go to her sister, right?
I mean, pen and paper might have been a little faster, but...
I know, I don't know why it was weaved into a tapestry.
It's storytelling at its finest. I could see, a montage scene.
It is.
Of her.
Like, with them going off the cliffs, ah!
Yes, and her weaving and...
Yeah. Here's her cutting off the tongue. So they take the tapestry and they go to the sister and they go, this is what has happened. And the sister is pissed at her husband, as she should be. So she decides to take her sons with her husband. She murders them, chops them up into pieces, and serves them to her husband as punishment.
That's a bit extreme.
And then bounces, grabs sister and bounces back to Athens and back to dad. Right? He finds out and he is pissed. So he starts chasing after them. And right as he's about to kill these two women, the Olympian gods, the Greek gods, step in and they change them into birds out of pity. Okay? Oh. So Tereus becomes a hawk. And he flies away. The original wife, her name was Procne, she became a swallow whose song is a song of mourning for the loss of the children that she had to sacrifice and feed to her husband.
Ultra sad.
And Philomena became a nightingale. So, fun fact, female nightingales have no song because she had her tongue removed, so that was her bird. It gets you right in the feels.
Is a knife in the heart. That's like the saddest thing. Early cannibalism.
Early cannibalism of her own sons. She kills her sons and feeds them to her husband out of revenge.
Out of revenge.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So there's another version of this story.
Yeah.
Okay. So husband and wife are super happy and super in love, and they say that they are happier than even Zeus and Hera.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they probably are. I mean,
Zeus and Hera seem to have a turbulent relationship.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people are.
Yeah. So Zeus and Hera hear this and they are pissed, as they do. So they go to cause strife within their marriage. Okay? Okay. It's a storytelling. It's the mythologies. Yeah. So
sounds like a Zeus and Hera thing to do.
Because they're so happily married.
Yeah.
Let's go torture someone together.
Okay.
So, at this time, husband and wife have a little fun competition going on. He is building a chariot and she is weaving a tapestry. And they have a competition of whoever completes their little task first has to buy the other one a slave. Okay? As one does when they win a competition. Well, no, this is the husband and wife.
Okay.
So Zeus and Hera go to cause strife by Hera helps the wife win.
Okay.
All right. Now there is strife within their marriage. He, in retaliation, decides to go rape her sister, as we do. So again, it's just another version of the first story. She goes to the father-in-law. He goes to the father-in-law. He says, hey, let me escort your daughter back to my wife, whatever. Along the way, he assaults her and turns her into a slave. And in this version, gives her to his wife as the slave that he owed for losing the bet. So he gives her own sister to her as the slave after she has been violently raped. I don't know if she has her tongue or not in this one.
Wow.
Yeah. Here's your slave that you won. It's your violated sister.
Man, that mythology is like no joke. You wonder.
Yeah.
You wonder why we are the way we are. I don't.
So as you do, you then kill your own son.
Yeah.
And you chop him up and you cook him and you feed him to the husband for revenge.
Absolutely.
Right? And then her and her sister flee back to dad. So in this version, it's kind of fun because so then the dad and the brothers, they go and they catch husband, right? And they tie him up and they smear his body with honey and they hurl him into the sheepfold, and then flies just flock to him. So he's basically being eaten alive by insects while covered in honey and manure and stuff. That's his punishment. But the wife takes pity on him, swats the flies away from him. Brother and the dad get pissed, and then they're the ones that are trying to chase and kill her, and they're the ones that are all turned into birds. So basically, a dude rapes his wife's sister. She then feeds children to him. He tries to kill them, and they all get turned into birds.
It's like a classic family drama. Like, obviously. Like, we all saw this play out in the 80s on TV. Like,
it's a tale as old as time. Girl meets boy.
Right?
Boy rapes girl. So there's that.
And then they all get turned into birds.
And then they're all birds. Yeah. That's fun.
But it's always the children, you know? It's the kid meat pie.
The sons,
really
yes, they always
turns me off of the story.
He, in both versions, never realizes he eats the sons until after he has eaten them. So he's told it later instead of figuring it out. So he went to town on his boys.
Oh, God, it's just the horror of that, man. You just have this fantastic meal, and you figure it out later. You know what I mean? It's like a what's in the box moment. You're like, wait, no.
They're like, yeah, sorry, bro.
Yeah. That's rough.
Yeah.
That's rough. Okay.
All right. Jumping right back into eating people. So everyone, well, hopefully most that know Greek mythology have heard of Tantalus, right? So he is a really fun story and has a bit of backstory that I didn't really know. So here's the full story of Tantalus. Okay? So he is the son of Zeus and a maiden called Pluto. He was initially known for being invited to Zeus's table. He stole some ambrosia and he went back to his people and he shared the ambrosia and he shared secrets of the god. And the gods were like, that is crap. And so initially he was known for that, but he kind of makes up with them. And so, I don't know, he's kind of a jerk. He invites all of the gods to a dinner and he doesn't really believe that they are all knowing. So he puts them to a test. And what he does is he kills his own son. I don't know why, but he does. He kills his own son and he serves them to the gods to see if they know that it's a human being. So they all know as soon as the food is put in front of them that it is not an okay meal. Okay? Because they're all knowing gods. Yeah. I mean, because they're the freaking gods. All except for Demeter. Okay, Demeter has her own backstory. Remember, her daughter Persephone was just stolen by Hades.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
We'll get into some mythology later in our lives because that's a really fun story. But Demeter is super sad because her daughter has just been stolen. So she's not really paying attention and she absent-mindedly picks at her meal, which happens to be this little boy's shoulder. So she did inadvertently eat the child. Okay, so they're pissed about this. The gods are. Because they knew it. So Zeus orders that the boy be brought back to life. So they collect all of the parts of the body and they boil him in a sacred cauldron. And they rebuild his shoulder made out of ivory. And so he is a human being that has an ivory shoulder from the gods.
That's beautiful.
His name is Pelops. Okay, so this is a really fun story of cannibalism that actually goes through 6 generations in this family that Tantalus started. Okay, so Tantalus serves Pelops, his son. Pelops is brought back to life. As punishment, Tantalus is forced to stand for forever in a pool of water beneath a tree of like fruit and food. And whenever he goes to reach for the food, it moves out of his grasp so he can never eat. He's always hungry and he always sees the food in front of him and he can't eat it. And then the water, he's so thirsty, he goes to drink it and it flows away from him. So it is, the words tantalizing. He's constantly deprived for eternity as punishment for trying to test the gods.
It's always there, but never there.
Yeah, Tantalus. So I wanted to look into his backstory, and it was kind of fun.
Absolutely. That's kind of messed up.
Yeah. But it does start the family on a very interesting trajectory. Okay?
Involving cannibalism.
Involving plots, murder, some cannibalism. Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
All right.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so Pelops.
Right.
He grows up into a very handsome man with an ivory shoulder, and he wants to marry the beautiful princess Hippodamia. Hippodamia. Huh? Yeah. Her dad says that if Pelops can beat him in a chariot race, he can have her hand in marriage and, the land and the kingdom, and he'll become king.
Absolutely.
And so
that's
Pelops,
how they do it.
Yeah, that's how you do it. And Pelops is like, all right, cool. So Pelops, or some versions say Hippodamia, went to a servant of the king and bribed him and said, if you help sabotage the king's chariot, you can have the first night with Hippodamia. You can take her V card, and I'll even give you some land because I'm going to be king. I'm going to have all this land. I'll give you some land. And so he's like, oh, heck yeah. Okay, so he sabotages the king's chariot. They race. It crashes. King dies. Pelops gets the hand of the beautiful princess and becomes the next king, right?
Right. And then what is slave person?
So servant goes up to Hippodamia and he's like, okay, baby, now let's do this. It's time to pay the piper, right? And she goes, oh no! And she runs to Pelops and she's like, how no? And he's like, I never said. And he's like, but this is our agreement. And they went, liar, slave, treachery. And what do? Kill him and toss his body into the sea.
Thanks for your help. Now I'm going to murder you.
Yeah. Aww. And with his dying gasp, he curses the family of Pelops and all of his descendants.
Well, that's sad. But I mean, he was like in love with Hippodamia. Like he wanted her. That's all he wanted. Lies.
Yeah.
All right.
Lies and betrayal. Yay. Okay. So now we're going to the next generation. There are 2 sons of Pelops and Hippodamia. Okay, so now we're at Thystius and Atreus. Cool. So the king is Atreus, the older brother, right? He makes a vow that he is going to sacrifice his best lamb to Artemis. But when he goes to search for his best lamb, he finds one that's gold. And he goes, oh, I don't want to give that up. So he smuggles it to his wife. All right. And he says, you hide this and we'll go give Artemis a different lamb.
Ooh,
okay.
I mean, they are all knowing.
Atreus, they are all knowing. You can't say it's going to her.
You found a golden one. They know.
They'll know. But wife, Arope, she takes golden lamb and she gives it to his brother who she is shagging. So she is with Thystius, okay? Now, together they come up with a plan. So Thystius goes up to his brother and says, dude, what you should do is you should say whoever is in possession of this golden lamb is automatically king. And Atreus is like, well, duh, I have the lamb. I'm king. That's a good deal. And so he makes a proclamation. Whoever has the golden lamb is king. Immediately, Thystius presents the golden lamb. He is then proclaimed king.
Vibes.
Atreus is pissed. He's like, what the hell? His wife is sleeping with his brother and they have conspired to take the throne. Okay? So, what he does is he takes all of Thystius' sons, he kills them, he cooks them, and he serves them to Thystius. Right?
We go back to our family history.
As we do.
As we do. And we repeat some history.
Well, everyone has their own family traditions.
Yeah, serving dads their children.
Is this family's tradition?
It's their tradition.
So Atreus is a little fun. He saves the hands and heads, and after Thystius finishes eating, he shows him and he's like, look, here's their heads, there's their hands, you just ate your kids. And
that's wild.
Yeah, Thystius is like, fuck, man, that sucks.
What?
But apparently, in their traditions, he's unable to spill his own brother's blood. Who knows? But you can kill the sons. Whatever.
I guess.
So, okay, this is where it gets a little confusing, as Greek mythology always does. So strap in, people.
It does.
Okay, so Thystius is pissed that he just ate his own sons.
As I get it.
Okay, so he goes to the oracle. how can I get my brother back? Okay. The oracle says that he has to have a son with his own daughter. He's got to go and rape his own daughter, get her pregnant with a son. That son is then going to grow up and he will kill Atreus for him. So the only way for Atreus to die is for him
to have a grandson, son.
Yeah. Yes. You got it. Yep, she followed right there. Okay, so he goes back, he disguises his identity, and he rapes his own daughter. She becomes pregnant, of course. She finds out that it's dad, though, and as soon as she has the baby, they abandon them out in it's called exposure. They leave them out into the woods or whatever, and then, animals eat them or they die of cold or whatever. So she goes and she abandons him out in the woods. And as always, a frickin' peasant farmer comes along and finds that darn baby. And who does he take him to? To the king, Atreus. Okay? Uncle Atreus.
Oh, hey there.
Okay, so Atreus raises this infant little baby boy as his own son.
Yeah.
As you do.
He has no idea.
He has no idea. And his name, oh gosh. We'll call him Augie. This is Augie.
It's Augie.
Yeah. So, Theseus, the perpetrator of all of this. As soon as Augie turns into an adult, he goes and tells him the truth. For some reason, Augie does not kill Theseus, his dad, grandpa. Instead, he fulfills the prophecy and he goes and he kills Atreus, the man who raised him as his own son, instead of the man that raped his mom to make him revenge baby.
Weird. But okay, that was a choice. Way to go, Augie.
So really fun. We're going to go, now we're almost to the 6th generation, and we might hit people that you might start to be familiar with. And this goes another couple generations down with their poor, tragic family curse. Okay.
Right.
All right. So Theseus now is the king of Mycenae, and the sons of Atreus, because Atreus is now killed. He has some sons. They are now sent into exile. And these sons are Agamemnon and Menelaus. All right. And they get exiled to Sparta, where they meet this dude that has some hot daughters that they end up marrying.
Weird.
Helen and her sister. And those actually have a big tale all their own that we will go down on a different episode because it's just the funnest tale.
Yeah.
But I just want everyone to know that, like, Menelaus' great-great-great-great-great-grandfather Tantalus started all these shenanigans, and everyone cooks everyone's sons in their family. He also kills his own children, as we will get into. Well, one child, his daughter. So there we go.
Dun, dun, dun.
Hungry yet? Hungry for family revenge.
I know, right? Like, that's history. That's really funny.
Yeah. Story for another day, though. It's fun. Greek mythology is lots of fun. Okay. This is a dude that we have heard of before in our execution episode. His favorite pastime was sawing people in half.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit of backstory for him. So, again, he's a Thracian king, Zisselmaeus. He's around 148, 146 BCE, before Common Era. And then, apparently, his uncle tried to usurp his dad. And his dad ends up dying, and Zisselmaeus is pissed. So, he avenges him by punishing anybody that was involved in the plot against his dad, right? He takes all of them and all of their family members. He cuts them into pieces. He saws several of them in half.
Yeah.
He puts a whole bunch on crosses. He burns a whole bunch alive. And just for the purposes of this episode, he then forces their families to eat the flesh of their murdered relatives.
That's extreme.
Yeah. Eventually, the Thracians rebelled, as they do. They caught him, and they inflicted all sorts of inconceivable tortures upon him.
Way to go, people.
Yeah.
Because, like, honestly, that's a couple steps, like, too far. You know what I mean? Like,
You tried to take the throne from my family, and
Yeah.
you should be punished.
I get that. This was a lot of steps of you should be punished.
If you don't make a big enough statement, anybody will think that you're a pushover and they can come and take your throne.
Mhm.
You gotta make them statements. Really, this is just politics.
I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, do we remember that guy that made the brazen bull?
Mm-hmm.
A couple episodes back. Was that execution as well?
Speaking of statements.
Speaking of statements, yeah, Phalaris.
Yeah.
He's the guy that created the brazen bull, and apparently there's one tiny obscure reference that says he also loved to eat suckling babies. So I threw it in there because we were familiar with him, you know.
What the heck, Phalaris? I mean,
You never know.
I don't know. If you're into cannibalism, I guess that would be a curious experience.
Well, I don't know if he was into cannibalism. He sure was into killing people.
Yeah.
So, who knows? Okay, so the Atticati, they have a lot of different names, but this is the one that I went with. And these are a group of Britain natives back for forever ago that used to raid the Romans. When Romans were trying to conquer Britain and England, modern day England, these are one of the tribes, the Atticati. And this is around 364, 368 Common Era, and they were known to practice cannibalism and polyandry, in which the woman takes on 2 or more husbands. So the Atticati definitely needed a shout out on this episode.
Vibes, Atticati.
Ooh, 1242. The Mongols. They're always fun to circle back to. Always creative. So they were apparently motivated by pleasure and desire to instill fear into their enemies. As they worked their way south to Vienna, they reached this Austrian town, and I had to throw it in here, and I'm going to try my best to say it, but it's called Wiener Nautstadt. And I know I said that wrong, but it's a Wiener, and I had to say it. And they just devastated the countryside around it. They began torturing and eating all of the civilians, regardless of their age, sex, fortune, class. According to some French witnesses, the soldiers ate old and deformed women right away, while virgin girls and beautiful women were gang raped to death and then eaten. Their breasts were cut off and served to the Mongol leaders as special delicacies. Victims were roasted alive on iron grates or boiled alive by placing them inside a bag, which was then put into a pot. I found that interesting. They were in a bag inside a pot. And who has a pot that big? Like, what kind of pot are we talking about?
Like one at a time? Do you think there were
Like, are there
multiples? Like, was it like this
pieces?
giant cauldron?
Right, like what are we talking about? Are they just
insane.
chonk up pieces and throw them in the bag and then like a double boiler? So apparently the breasts were particularly prized, and if there were more corpses than needed, they were sometimes the only part of the woman's body that was eaten.
Wowza.
Yeah.
That's a lot to consume. The dehumanization that just must be part of that culture, that, you know, that you can remove that.
I don't know.
It's interesting.
It was the delicacy. It was the prized piece.
Right? Well, they certainly weren't wasteful, I guess, except for when they had...
You know, they made sure to use all of the... Well, no.
Yeah, the enjoyable
Unless there
parts,
were more corpses
I
than needed, then they only ate the good parts. I mean, and that's pretty wasteful, if you ask me.
Those Mongols.
All right, so 1305, the Marquess of Montferrat of Italy, he died. Okay. His personal doctor was suspected of poisoning him, and he was subsequently stabbed to death by the Marquise's loyal friends. Okay.
Okay.
Many of whom afterwards ate his flesh.
So was this like a little party or something? And then like his doctor poisons him, and then they
I don't know.
Like-
So they suspected the doctor of killing him, of poisoning him. So they stabbed the doctor, very Caesar style.
Okay.
They stab the doctor. And then they eat the doctor. I don't know why they then eat the doctor, but they do.
But they also decided, well, let's just go ahead and try a little bit.
I guess.
Let's just try a little bit of this doctor. Let's see how it tastes. That sounds rational. That sounds very 1305, I guess. All right, carry on.
All right, so we're going to go to northern Sumatra, where there are inhabitants of Lamori. Oh, I know. I'm so sorry for all those. I'm saying it incorrectly. Okay. Apparently, these people love to purchase slave children from foreign merchants so they could slaughter them and eat them. Apparently, the kingdom was wealthy and there was no lack of other food, suggesting that the custom was driven by preference for the human flesh rather than from hunger.
Yeah, see?
But they're only little kids.
Only the children. I find that's just part of the culture.
That you just eat children?
They're just eating young children. It's part of the culture. It's very Sanderson sisters. It's just it's just a Tuesday for them.
Some cultures
it's just
are,
a Tuesday. Yeah. It's just a Tuesday for the Mongols to have plenty of young women, plenty of women
to eat,
so that they could just eat only the breast.
Yeah.
Everybody's getting breast tonight.
Woo!
It's just a part of the culture.
You join our horde, breasts every night.
Every night, because we get so many.
That's a good recruiting platform. Right? There we go.
It's just part of the culture. I find that really interesting. It's part of the experience of growing up.
It is definitely a taboo thing, a last resort thing. Other cultures do it. It's just very interesting through the ages.
Yeah.
Going through this, you find like the first examples of cannibalism, and it's actually in like Neanderthals and stuff where they found human bones that had knife marks on them, indicating that they were probably like deboned for one reason or another, assuming that it would be for consumption. Yeah. So we've been eating each other a long time.
Long time. I guess I didn't really understand that it pops up more often.
Do you know what pops up more often? Cannibal serial killers. They're going to have their own episode, and man, that was dark. I started going down some research rabbit holes here, listeners, and I had to call her one day and go, I don't know what to do. I don't know which way this episode is going to turn. And she said, hey, just go for the fun cannibalisms. And I went, yeah. Okay, let's keep it light, let's keep it fun, and we'll do some different episodes with the Donners and the crazy nutbag, man. There's some crazy nutbags, dude.
And we recognize that's not everybody's cup of tea.
Yeah.
I might have to call in like a
friend for that. And I'm just like laughing, wagging my tail. Guess this is the next one.
Yeah. You'll never believe what he did with his cheeks.
Put it in a salad. That was the craziest thing. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. 1437. A man from central Italy murdered a boy who had accidentally killed his son. He then took that poor boy, cooked him up, and served him to the boy's father as revenge. The two families then began a feud which ultimately ended up taking the lives of 36 people during the next couple weeks.
Holy cowbells.
Yeah.
It sounds
revenge, man. It gets terrible. If you go on a path for revenge, bring 2 shovels or whatever.
Right. I find it interesting that this is a lot of dads being fed their sons.
Right.
That seems to be a common theme. It's kind of weird.
So, July 1514, we have this Hungarian leader, Gregory. So he was captured, and they forced him to sit on a heated iron throne. And then he was forced to wear, like, a heated iron crown to mock his ambition and audacity to try to be king.
Wow.
You gotta teach him. Okay, so while he was suffering, they paraded 9 of his fellow rebels in front of him, and so they were starved beforehand as well. So they're starved beforehand, and they're led up to his melting throne, throne of fire. Executioners take the pliers, as we all know what hot pliers do to poor melty flesh, and they proceed to rip chunks of his flesh from his body, and then forces these rebel leaders to then eat these ripped chunks, right? And so, like, the first 2 don't. They say, sorry, I can't do that. That's terrible. And they are immediately cut down and cut into pieces and thrown on the fire. And then the rest of the poor rebel leaders just comply.
They're like, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'll do that.
I guess I have to do this.
I'm going to do that to live.
Yeah. Hopefully they live at the end of this.
That sounds like a medieval fear factor right there. Like, that's really bad.
Fear factor.
Like, that's really messed up.
Yeah. So obviously poor Gregory dies through this ordeal.
Yeah.
But the rebels that obeyed were released. So, hey. There's some trauma to take with you.
But they're fine. But they get to live. It's fine, guys. Don't worry. They get to live. It's so messed up.
1521. 2 Frenchmen were executed for murder and, oh my God, my brain. Say it. Say the word. Lycanthropy. There we go. Okay, 2 Frenchmen were executed for murder and lycanthropy after they admitted to having killed and eaten 6 children while they were transformed into werewolves.
I'm sorry, teacher.
Yes, student. Yeah, they're in the front row, Cecilia.
Lycanthropy. That is the transformation into
a werewolf.
A werewolf. Okay.
Correct. Those were their official charges. Murder
and lycanthropy.
Yes.
I don't know.
Did they admit to this under torture? Who knows? Probably.
Right? Did they have chin hairs? I mean, I'm sorry, they were Frenchmen, so it should be expected. But, like, all right.
Okay, 1572. This one tiny sentence led me down another rabbit hole, as I love to do. I wonder how I get anything done, because I just go, what's this mean? What is this? Okay, so it just says that French Catholics ate the livers and hearts of the Huguenots of the St. Bartholomew's Massacre. That was it. That was the sentence.
Just the livers and the hearts.
And I was like, well, what's the St. Bartholomew's Massacre? And why were these Catholics eating the hearts of these Protestants? Huguenots are just French Protestants.
And
that's just
livers.
the fun word.
And their livers.
And their livers. So
why those 2 organs? Yeah. Okay, do tell. What happened here? What is this day?
St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre, 1517. To cement peace between the Catholics and the Protestants, Queen Catherine Medici, interesting, and she's lots of fun. She planned to marry her daughter Margaret to the Protestant king, future king, Henry. Okay, so she's going to marry her Catholic daughter to the Protestant king. This impending marriage led to a large gathering of a lot of very well-born Protestants into Paris. Paris is super Catholic and anti-Protestant, and they were pissed. So, upon the order of the Queen Catherine Medici and the King of France, they thought the best thing to do is to just murder these pesky Protestant aristocrats. And so they ordered the soldiers and a whole bunch of Swiss mercenaries. They pull, so they're all these Protestants are guests at the castle for the wedding, and these Swiss mercenaries pull them all out of the Louvre castle and throw them into the streets and then begin massacring them. This then gives the Catholics free reign on the Protestants of Paris and of France. It spreads throughout the countryside as soon as news of this, that the throne allowed this to happen and started this to happen, they were like, heck yeah, let's kill all the Protestants. So France went nuts for a little bit and massacred all of these poor Protestants.
That's hilarious. Welcome to Paris. We're going to kill you all.
Yeah. So they started like chaining it. They went crazy in the streets of Paris. They would chain the doors of Protestants. They would massacre them in the streets, women, children. So it was this huge Bartholomew's Day massacre. And apparently the Catholics went so nuts, they started eating the hearts and the livers of these
that's insane. Of
Protestants.
Women and children and humans alike.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mass anger, retribution. It's crazy. Yeah. So April 1655, Catholic troops, they kind of go at it again. These Catholics and Protestants really don't like each other ever since the beginning of the Protestant creation of this religion. Catholics and Protestants have been fighting.
It's a long, bloody history, I am learning.
It is. Religious history is insane.
Yeah.
So right now we're in northwest Italy. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So now we have eyewitness accounts of French Catholic soldiers that begin to boil the brains of the Protestants. Both the brains and the heart of a man were fried and eaten. A soldier reported that after a woman was raped, her breasts were cut off and parts of her genitals were cut out. They were then fried together and served to other unsuspecting soldiers as tripes. A young girl, a young girl aged of about 10 was impaled on a pike and roasted alive over an open fire. The soldiers then tried to eat her flesh, but found it too poorly roasted.
Man, 1655 doesn't seem that far away. So very disappointing.
The atrocities that we can expound upon one another.
Yeah. Man.
One of these days, we're going to have a really fluffy episode.
Are we?
Well, this is our Thanksgiving special.
I thought this was going to be so fluffy.
Yeah, I was going to tell her about, treats through the ages for Thanksgiving as we're preparing our food and preparing to gather our family and our dear ones around us to share in each other's joys and togetherness with tales of cannibalism.
And the delicacies of female breast.
Apparently they're the best. I think we can all agree with that, though.
I mean, meaty and fatty, like pork. I imagine it's very bacony.
Ooh.
It's got to give that vibes.
Okay, I'll take that.
I don't know. Apparently, Cecilia just has a weird obsession when it comes to
cooking flesh.
Cooking human flesh.
She does. Yeah. One of these days I feel like it's going to happen.
I don't think so. I mean,
if the apocalypse happens, she's finally going to have the social restraints removed, and we'll have an opportunity
to understand.
And I will get to explore my enjoyment of medieval weaponry.
Yeah.
So there we go. There's good thoughts for future apocalypses. Okay, so
it might happen. I don't know. You're right. When the social constraints are gone, who knows what's going to happen in the world? That's really weird to think of. I mean, I'm a dedicated chef.
You are.
And
I'll tell you, you're one of the best chefs I've ever had, so I'd probably try it just because I know if you had made it, it would taste delicious.
It's a thought.
Yeah.
I don't know. But there are lots of animals out there to experiment with as well.
I don't always enjoy experimenting with the poor animals.
Yeah. I feel differently about it as a means for survival, as a means for...
Yeah, like if I'm stuck in a
family.
famine or a siege with you, I know we're going to be good.
We're going to be okay.
We're going to have the best mice stew. Dude, you don't even know.
Rabbits and mice.
Yeah.
Rabbits. No, you can breed rabbits.
Oh, yeah.
They're prolific.
Yeah, they are, and they grow real fast.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying here, people? This is why
chickens and rabbits. We'll be fine.
I attach myself to this beautiful woman. We're gonna survive the apocalypse. I will have siege machinery. Mm-hmm. And she will have cooking skills, and we will survive.
We will be fine.
Mm-hmm. This is also probably what they thought in 1831 France.
Yeah.
They have this super fun scandal. It's called the Red Inn Affair.
Okay.
So this dude, Jean-Antoine, was found dead by a nearby river and his skull was smashed in.
Oh, no.
The owners of a nearby inn, Pierre and Marie Martin, and their employee, Jean Rocher, was arrested and eventually charged with his murder. During the subsequent trial, numerous witnesses began to testify to other crimes that they said were committed by these three people. Up to 50 murders at the inn, aggravating circumstances of rape, and cannibalism.
Cannibalism.
There were rumors that the owners used to serve their intended victims meals that contained cooked body parts of previous people that had stayed at their inn.
What in the Sweeney Todd is going on here?
More than 100 witnesses were called to testify.
What?
Mainly these were indirect witnesses. They were relying on rumors, and much of the evidence was inadmissible. But some of the claims included the landlady would use the best bits of the corpses to make pâtés and stews for customers to eat. Certain farmers had seen human hands simmering in the cookpot.
I mean, it's an easy way to get the meat off the
Yeah.
bone. I see it.
Others reported having seen bed sheets or walls stained with blood.
Ooh.
There were accounts of sickening smoke frequently coming from the chimneys.
I mean,
because they were said to burn the corpses of their victims,
clothing,
including
their
children.
skin. Yeah. Hair, that's all gonna smell terrible.
They would put them in the bread oven or pretend that they were found dead from cold or snow. They were convicted of only the murder of Jean-Antoine, and they were sentenced to death. They were executed by guillotine in front of the inn, in front of a crowd of 30,000 onlookers.
Wow.
Seems like a big number.
That was, well, I mean, it was probably an extraordinary number, but definitely sensationalized.
Yeah, notorious case.
Yeah. But in 1831, I mean, newspapers were a big part of our culture, and it was like that's being able to share that news and the sensationalized headlines.
Heck yeah.
And that was just a big part of being alive then. So I'm sure that this was just absolutely intriguing, like a penny dreadful, but real life happening.
And then you got to go down and you could watch them lose their heads.
The outcome of it all.
That's right.
That's insane.
It's
I'm
like
sure this was a huge, massive shared experience. I would wonder what, like, the diaries of the people of that specific slice of time.
Yeah.
Like what they would have written about.
People flocked here from all regions coming to watch. We took their money by selling them crappy meat sticks and stuff. Because you know that there's got to be food vendors and...
Yeah.
You know.
What an experience.
All the inns and stuff were full. Okay. This brings us to 1950s New Guinea. Some may be familiar with it, but around the 1950s, researchers that had visited New Guinea began to find something disturbing. There was a tribe over there called the Four, and they were noticing that around 200 people a year had begun to die of an inexplicable illness. They called this disease kuru, which means shivering or trembling. Once symptoms set in, it was a swift demise. First, they'd have trouble walking, a sign that they were about to lose control of their limbs. They'd also lose control of their emotions, which is why some people called it the laughing death. Within a year, they could not get up off the floor. That's a year. I don't think that's very swift. Is that swift?
That doesn't seem super swift.
Well, after a year, they couldn't get up off the floor, they couldn't feed themselves or control their bodily functions. They soon realized this was a condition connected to the burial practices of the villages.
What?
Yeah. So they felt that if the body was buried, it was eaten by worms. And if it was placed up on a platform, it was eaten by maggots.
Okay.
So therefore, they believed that it was much better that the body was eaten by people who loved them rather than worms and insects.
A natural assumption.
Yeah. So Women removed the brain, mixed it with ferns, and cooked it in tubes of bamboo. They fire roasted and ate everything except the gallbladder. This was done primarily by adult women because their bodies were thought to be capable of housing and taming the dangerous spirits that would accompany a dead body.
Yeah, that checks. I could see that.
So the women took on the role of consuming the dead body and giving it a safe place inside their own body, taming it for a period of time during this dangerous period of mortuary ceremonies, and then they could go off and be at peace.
Wow.
And so women, we would always, we hand snacks to our kids. You know, they run up and we feed them little bits of whatever we're cooking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they would always eat them, except for the boys. Once they hit a certain age, they went off to go live with the men, and they were told they were not allowed to touch that stuff. It was for women only.
At that point.
Yeah.
Super interesting. Here's a piece of Uncle Larry. Go away. Get out of here, kid.
And that is because there was, Mom, I'm hungry. When's lunch? Here, take a bite. Go.
Right?
Here's a bamboo tube of...
A brain. Uncle Billy's brain. Gosh, that's messed up, man.
Because, of course, women's bodies are the only bodies that can tame and control the evilness of the world. How are we the givers of life and also the most terrible of things in one stroke?
I don't know. It's really interesting. I find that...
Why aren't we worshipped more? Us and Egyptian cats. I don't understand. Women are the givers of life and we are the bringers of things, and yet we are punished and subjugated so much. I don't get it.
I don't know, girl.
Well, on that pleasant note, y'all know I love water. Yep. I love ships. So I had to bring in what is called the custom of the sea. And this is a well-known and established practice of cannibalism among shipwreck survivors by drawing of lots to decide who would be killed and then eaten so that everyone else could survive. I think it's noble.
I mean, is that in the contract that you get when you sign up for piracy and shipping stuff? That's just a customary practice.
Yep, it was literally called the custom of the sea. There were established rules and etiquettes to it, the drawing of the lots, how they would be killed, how would their bodies would be treated afterwards. This was very established. But as with all things that are established, we sure do love to violate those rules. Often, captains and other high-ranking crew members would refuse to put their own lives at risk, thinking that they were better. So instead, they would often sacrifice who they considered to be more expendable, like slaves, young boys, passengers, so that they could be food and the others could survive. So, the followings are super fun examples of the customs of the sea. Like I said, I tried to pick the fun ones.
Examples. We love it. They're like stickers. I don't know. I love a good example.
We do. How are you really going to truly understand if we don't delve into the nitty-gritty about it?
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the winter between 1765 and 1766, the American ship Peggy drifted for months. Sorry.
That ship named Peggy.
Peggy.
She wasn't a redhead. I'm disappointed.
Not anymore. She was drifting. Because a severe storm had destroyed all of its means of navigation. Okay. So, having eating all of their provisions, and that included tobacco, lamp oil, candles, and leather. The crew told the captain that they would hold a lottery to decide who should be slaughtered to feed the others. But they had already determined they were going to kill the one black slave on board. And after a sham lottery, they shot him through the head. One of the crew ate the victim's liver raw.
What?
The rest of the body was cooked, and then some of the remainder was pickled.
Pickled? I wonder what parts they pickled. Like the hands and the feet, like the hard
There's
parts.
Not a lot of meat on that. I would simmer and stew it. I would pickle organs.
It'd be stocked. Ooh, yeah, pickled the organs.
Yeah.
Alright.
The offal, wouldn't you pickle offal and then it'll last longer?
I guess.
Eat it later.
Why did they have to go through the sham lottery, though? You know, they had already made their choice.
Right. Just to kind of appease their own conscience, maybe.
I don't know.
I don't understand this one, but this one's fun. Poor Medusa. 1816. Through the very inept navigation of her captain, who had only been given captaincy through political reasons, and he had never really actually captained a ship. All right?
All right.
So he ran poor Medusa onto the coast off of northern Africa and just destroyed the ship. It was a total loss. And it soon became apparent that there were not enough lifeboats for everyone.
Very nice.
Yes. So most of the 400 passengers on board evacuated with the lifeboats. There were still some left over. And those left, they created a raft. It was 66 feet long and 23 feet wide. So this is a pretty big raft.
Right.
They made it out of salvaged wood planks, and they nicknamed it La Machine.
They were proud.
They were
Obviously.
proud. So the raft was able to carry a few supplies, but it had no means of steering or navigation, and it tended to take on water easily.
Cool.
17 men chose to stay behind with the sinking Medusa, just to see if they would be rescued, because they would not risk their lives on the raft. But 146 men and 1 woman did risk their lives, and they huddled on this improvised raft, and then they started to be towed by the lifeboats. Okay?
Okay.
Very quickly, these lifeboats realized that towing was impractical. So they were getting slowed down, they weren't making a lot of progress, and they were worried that the people on the raft would soon overwhelm the lifeboats and sink them. So they did what anyone else would do. They cut the raft loose.
Sorry, Betty, I got the better end of the stick.
Yep.
And I'm out.
And they rode off. They sure did. So without any means of navigation, the situation rapidly deteriorates. Dozens are washed ashore into the sea by storms. Others begin to get drunk off of wine, rebel, and then the officers killed them. On the very first night, 20 men were killed or committed suicide. The supplies began to run super low. The injured were thrown into the sea. And then some of the survivors resorted to the custom of the sea and engaged in cannibalism. On the 8th day, the fittest of the survivors decided to throw all of the rest of the weak and the wounded overboard, leaving just 15 of the, 146. 47 with a chick, but she wasn't one of them. She probably went pretty quick.
Yeah.
15 men survived. They were rescued about 4 days later on July 17th by a ship that passed them just accidentally and found them randomly. Yep.
I bet they look like a haggard, messed up group of men going through that.
They made a lot of choices.
For reals. That is like the ultimate survivor game right there. That's terrifying. How quickly that devolved.
I know, they towed him for 30 minutes and they went, yeah, we're done. And then within 1 day, a bunch of people are killed right off the bat and thrown into the sea.
It's insane.
Yeah. Just so that everyone knows, in case they were needing to sleep tonight and couldn't, the men that stayed behind on the Medusa were ultimately rescued. Only a couple of them died from starvation. Some were rescued.
All right.
Yeah.
Way to go, guys that just said, nah.
I'll risk it here. All right. So a whale rammed into the whaling ship Essex off of the coast of Nantucket in 1820. The survivors were left floating in 3 small little boats. They eventually resorted, by common consent, to cannibalism to allow some of them to survive. 7 crew members were eaten. Okay. 6 of them died from starvation and exposure. 1, Owen Coffin, lost the lottery and was shot dead. The captain did volunteer to take Coffin's place, but Coffin refused and accepted his lot stoically.
Well, way to go, Coffin. I mean, your last name's Coffin. You know?
You're just meant to die. I mean, we're all
You
meant
are
to die.
well, I mean, yes, we are. We are all meant to die. But he had one nail in the coffin.
Really
You know?
put a nail in the coffin when he went out.
Sorry.
It's
Just can't help ourselves.
All right, so this practice ended in 1884 when there was a shipwreck in a storm about 1,600 miles off of the Cape of Good Hope. After a few weeks adrift in a lifeboat, 17-year-old Richard Parker fell unconscious due to a combination of hunger and drinking seawater, which can make you really sick. So 2 of the 3 others in the boat decided to kill and eat him. They say the 3rd man abstained. So they were picked up 4 days later, and they were actually arrested and tried. And the case held that necessity was not a defense for murder. The 2 defendants were convicted, but the death sentence was commuted to just 6 months of imprisonment because they really did weigh in the necessity. But if they had done more of a lottery, no one would have gone to jail. But because they chose to murder him to eat him out of necessity is why they were put up on charges. And then they outlawed the custom of the sea at that point.
1884. That's like only 100 years before I was born.
Yeah.
That's messed up.
When it was legally acceptable, I mean, it's still done, I'm sure, out of necessity, and that's the whole point. It was necessity. So that brings us to the last topic of all of the fun ways that we consume our friends and family through the ages. And this is something called mummia, and it's really interesting. All right, so about from the 1500 on, there was this unusual form of medical cannibalism that became widespread all over Europe. This is where thousands of Egyptian mummies were ground up and sold as medicine. This powdered human mummy was called mummia and was thought to stop internal bleeding and to have other healing properties.
Yeah. Sorry, grinding up dead mummies.
Yeah.
Medicinal.
Yeah. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Dead old people?
Yeah. In 1590, sure.
There's a reason. It's a really funny reason. So, originally, the Arabic form mummia, all right, there's lots of different spellings of this, was a type of resinous bitumen that was found in Western Asia and was used in medicine and Islamic medicine. It was translated as pis asphalticis. I know that sounds really funny, but it's pitch and asphalt. Okay. So they took this word that was bitumen that used to be used as medicine, and it was improperly translated by people to be mummy. So the Arabic word mummia of black resinous medicine was translated incorrectly to mean mummy. So they thought that this black resinous goop that was in mummies was the medicine. Okay. So they thought that mummia was aloes and myrrh mixed with the liquids of human bodies. This is a substance that could be found in the lands where bodies were buried and by which the liquids of the dead can be transformed into something to a marine pitch. So the resins that they were mummified in turn into this black goo that they then thought was a curative substance. It is best. It is best when it is black, ill-smelling, shiny, and massive. So during the Crusades, European soldiers saw firsthand the Arabic mummia being applied and being used by their doctors. And they did see it had really great healing powers in cases of fractures and ruptures.
I'm sorry. What?
Translating, man, words mean things, people, okay? From pitch and asphalt bitumen as a medicine, mistranslated into mummy. So now we have this huge lucrative trade between Egypt and Europe where they begin to start substituting this mummy goo with entire mummies, either embalmed or desiccated. Merchants and apothecaries then began to dispense this expensive mummy bitumen, which was thought to be a cure-all for many ailments, as well as an aphrodisiac. The demand for mummy increased in Europe so much that they couldn't keep up with the supplies of dead mummies. So what did they do? They start to begin to counterfeit mummies from corpses often found from the gallows. So they started taking random dead people, jerkying them and desiccating them, passing them off as ancient mummies so they could be ground down and used as medicine in Europe. Eventually, Egypt banned the shipment of mumia in the 16th century, but unscrupulous European apothecaries continued to sell this fraudulent mummy prepared by embalming and desiccated fresh corpses. Then, just to be fun, the mummy that is most medicinal, okay, is described as the flesh of a dead body that is embalmed, and it is hot and it is dry, and therefore it has the virtue to heal over wounds and staunch the blood. It is also best if it is from the body of a man who did not die a natural death, but rather an unnatural death, leaving the body healthy without sickness. So, the flesh of a man that perishes a violent death and then kept in the air for some time is what's best. And then there's this recipe for making a tincture from the corpses of a young red-haired man who had been hanged, bludgeoned on the breaking wheel, and exposed to the air for days. You then cut the skin into small pieces, sprinkle it with powdered myrrh and aloes, soak in wine, and then dry it out.
But, I mean...
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know.
Apothecaries would steal bodies of freshly executed criminals, dry them out in ovens, and sell their flesh.
Well, there's one use.
There's this merchant in Egypt who was collecting a lot of dead bodies and preparing the mummies. He expressed surprise that the Christians, who had so dainty mouths, could even eat the bodies of the dead. But we did. During the Renaissance, scholars realized that translating bituminous mumia as mummy was a mistake, and physicians immediately stopped prescribing it. But technically, you could still get it on sale as medicinal stuff until 1924.
That's absolutely
face.
insane to me. Until 1924, you could get the
by 1924,
tar.
Those were not authentic mummies. Those were some criminals or poor people or something in an oven.
Yeah, that we partook in the eating of gross, rotted oh, man.
So don't worry. These bodies were not just used as fake medicine and aphrodisiacs. We also really think that they make a really pretty paint color. So this is a legit color. It's called mummy brown, and artists use ground up mummies to tint their oil paint, and it is called mummy brown. So they're used as pigments, and it is usual to grind up the bones and other parts of the mummy together so that the resulting powder has more solidity and is less fusible than asphalt alone.
Nice.
Yeah. So don't worry, the dead bodies of the poor criminals had many uses.
That's good. That's so good.
Well, everyone, as you're preparing your Thanksgiving meals and sharing what you're thankful with around the table with your family this year, I want all of you to be thankful that hopefully you are not being served the stewed flesh chunks of your children as revenge.
Right? Bamboo boiled brains is not on our menu, and I am grateful
It's not.
for that.
I think we're doing turkey this year. You're doing, what are you
We're
doing?
going to do ham and rotisserie chickens. We're just not turkey people.
That's
in our
perfectly
life.
fine. Do you know what I am kind of people? Green bean casserole.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are the sweet potatoes with marshmallows.
Now, do you toast them or
Heck
you
yeah, we
burn
do.
the heck out of them?
We get the verge of black on the top of the sweet potatoes.
All right.
We get really, really
dark
crispy.
toast.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And then my mom will put another layer of marshmallows on and then re-toast them. She's wild.
I like how you think.
Yeah.
Well, Histories Uncharted wishes everyone out there a happy Thanksgiving. And for those of you around the world that are hopefully listening to us but don't celebrate Thanksgiving, eat something delicious and hopefully it's not your children. And hopefully you join us for another episode next week. I don't even know what it's going to be, but we're coming into the holiday season.
Yes.
So you better believe that we're going to bring you all kinds of treats and stories that are all holiday related.
It's about to get merry and bright
Yeah, it is.
with Uncharted Histories, my friends.
Heck yeah. So happy holidays here from us at Histories Uncharted, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.